First, let me introduce from my immediate left, Her Excellency, the First Lady of Sierra Leone, Dr. Fatima Maada. It's great to have you on the panel. Thank you so much. And sitting next to her is someone who's a medical practitioner, Dr. Olayemi Dawodu, who's CEO of Cerba Lancet based in Nigeria. Good to have you. And then just next to Dr. Dawodu is Nyaradzayi Gumbonzvanda, and she is the Assistant Secretary General of United Nations Women. So let's start from the very beginning. For me, this kind of conversation is one that is extremely important to understand. Where do we start from? And where we would like to start from my perspective, is do people really understand the implication of not protecting women? We've had a success story in Sierra Leone. So let me start with the First Lady of Sierra Leone, Dr. Maada. Help us understand, when you look at what you have had to do, the battles you've gone through to get to where you are in Sierra Leone, how did you achieve this?
Thank you so very much for having me here today. First of all, early marriage, in my own definition, is a form of legalizing rape. That's my own definition of early marriage, because a child cannot give consent. A child, you're not supposed to have sex with a child. And if a child cannot give consent and then you allow a child to be married, that means you're forcing somebody else to rape that child. And since becoming the First Lady of Sierra Leone in 2018, I took it upon myself to make it my agenda so that people have to stop these cruel habits. This is not, it is not religious. It is a cultural norm that they believe that they can use religion to cover up the bad and evil thing they are doing. And I thought, in my own position, I am not going to sit and allow something like this to happen. And I started to campaign against it. And I started a campaign called the Hands of Our Girls campaign. And 7 years later, we are now able to ban the practice, because I've managed to get the whole nation to understand the effect of early marriage on our girls. The number of girls that are dying in our hospitals when they go to deliver and their body are not ready. The number of girls that are being out of school because of early marriage. The number of girls that are now dropouts. They are now liability not only on their family but on the nation. So it took me about 6 years to get the whole nation to understand the impact of early marriage on our society.
Okay, now that's a very important thing. I'll come back to you in just a matter of seconds to just get an opinion from Dr. Dawodu. In terms of whether people really understand the full implication of what they are doing when they get children to get married very early. Help us understand, what's the full implication from your perspective and from the practice that you have had?
Thank you very much for the question, Kay. So by specialization, I'm an anatomic pathologist, and so I perform a lot of autopsies to determine the causes of death. And very common that contributes to maternal death are things like postpartum hemorrhage and all that. And these things come from, these young girls who are underaged. They're not fully developed physically. If you know that the pelvic system of a young girl under 19 is not fully developed, it's about 80 to 88% developed, then you know what the ramifications are when she has to undergo sexual intercourse and carry a full pregnancy. So they have complications of obstructed labor leading to, they can have uterine rupture and they can die. And if they don't die, there are morbidities that they have after that pregnancy: vesicovaginal fistulas, rectovaginal fistulas, urinary incontinence. In my country, it's more common in the northern part of the country, the northeast and the northwest, which, by experience is where we see the prevalence of that. And that has its attendant problem on the healthcare system. So it might just look like, okay, it's just some young girl who gets married and has her own issues in terms of these health issues that I've spoken about physically. If they don't die, there are also mental ramifications to it as well, because these are young girls that are not fully developed mentally and psychologically to handle what is going to happen to them when they have complicated pregnancies. Apart from that, they're saddled with the responsibility of being a wife and a mother. And so even if the children that they have survive, there's also neglect at home. There's a very big correlation between early marriage and maternal death and infant mortality. And we know that Nigeria is kind of high up there in terms of that, which we're working on. So there's a big direct correlation with that. So, I mean, those are some of the things that can happen by pushing forward child marriages. It also has an effect on the economy, because in 2019, Nigeria was said, using Nigeria as an example, was said to have lost $7.6 billion from lack of earning and productivity because of child marriages. So even though it seems it's child marriage, it transcends the whole society, basically.
All right, thank you very much, Dr. Olayemi Dawodu. Let me move on to the Assistant Secretary General of UN Women. When you look at the work, the great work that we all celebrate that is being done by United Nations all around the world, why do we have this really precarious, horrible situation that it's prevalent in Africa? What are the things that make it such that it's so difficult, despite your campaigns, to get it to gain ground?
Thank you so much. I want to start by really congratulating the discourse on what is gaining ground is what our First Lady from Sierra Leone said. Starting to reject the notion that this is a marriage and starting to define it on what it is, that we are talking about sexual exploitation of girls, we are talking about rape, we are talking about violation of multiple rights for girls. So for us in the United Nations and for UN Women, and for the 10 years I served as the African Union Goodwill Ambassador on Ending Child Marriage, it was very clear that member states have made a commitment in the SDGs that is providing traction, action, basis for interventions, that Africa and the African Union launched a campaign to end child marriage, to end female genital mutilation, therefore lifting the actions that needs to be made by the member states. So we see countries like Sierra Leone, Malawi, Zambia, Mozambique, Zimbabwe, starting to have laws which do not have clawback clauses, where they are saying neither culture nor religion should be used to justify, to rationalize child marriage. And that's the direction that I think is important. On your point on why therefore is the issue still remaining very persistent? It's basically 4 issues. One is that this is a violation, a violence against girls that had almost been normalized when it should not be normal because it's abuse and rape. Secondly, is access to information, including comprehensive sexual information, decision-making for girls, opportunities and choices. And thirdly, it's around poverty, and which is a very painful issue because my Africa is not poor. And yet the daughters of Africa are being married off because of poverty. When we look at the resources of Africa, they should prioritize the investment on the girls, on the children, on basic services, healthcare and education. So there's that contradiction between household poverty and the potential of the continent and the resources in it. And lastly, definitely, is perpetrator anonymity. I continue to bring the issues of justice all the time. If 12 million girls are married each year, who are the men marrying them? Who are the parents, men, aunties, mothers, grandmothers, who are condoning the marriage? So it's also an accountability and responsibilities of elders to protect their children. So that accountability is very important, and we need justice.
So, Natalia, let me push that question to you. You work with UN Population Fund, UNFPA, and I am wondering, when you go out to a part of the world called Africa, and you look at the campaign that people like Nyaradzayi is doing, when you look at the work that they're doing, don't you wonder sometimes, in terms of the numbers of girls that are married early, and then also help us understand when it comes to why is it often said that this happens because there is support of women as well?
Kayode, thanks so much. I just want to acknowledge first and foremost that Africa is the backbone of the work of UNFPA. When we work to build a world where a 10-year-old girl is going to step out confidently into her adolescence, when she's going to finish her education, what we know is that health is very much tied to that precious period of life, childhood and adolescence, and that the expectations we have of her should be unlimited. So of course UNFPA works all around the world, but most of our resources are pouring into Africa because there you see examples of leadership. Dear First Lady, you and Head of State in Sierra Leone have brought that hope and determination to the girls of your country through the legislative arena, but also by showing that culture is not static. What was good for yesterday when grandmother had 15 children and what have you not, is not the direction that Africa is heading in a digital world where in fact the continent has contributed to that revolution. As the good doctor has put on the table, a lot of the issues of health are medicalized, but they have their root in, do we respect the rights of that girl or not? What we think, and we work very closely together as civil society, as the United Nations, but also depending on the leadership of governments, time and again, African women and girls have stood up and told us what they want. And the best protection that we have is for an African girl to know her rights, for an African girl to know her own body, for an African girl to be encouraged that the sky is the limit and that we are going to back her up. So the reason that we have some African women still holding on to culture, feeling very proud of certain traditions, is precisely because we have not refuted step by step, right? Is it good to put a child in a menstruation hut? What are the consequences? For female genital mutilation, we saw in Gambia, women and girls again assert their right to bodily autonomy when it was under threat. I believe that Africa's leadership, and in particular, African women's leadership, has had such a bonus effect all around the world because these are issues that are germane to the sustainable development that the SDGs represent. And when I think of the unlimited talent that African youth will bring onto the world stage, it is the youngest continent and actually the most rapidly advancing continent. We cannot be shy about talking about these issues of rights. Sexual and reproductive health is important because it determines the trajectory of where is that adolescent girl going to go. Is she going to be able to contribute to the bright future, or is she going to be relegated to a medieval hoe bent over her labors? I think that, for me, the inspiration that I have came out of the Benin conference that we hosted to celebrate ICPD 30 this year, where the young people of Africa and all over the world joined together with their 5-point agenda, and it's online as the Cotonou Declaration that says, pay attention to the planet and the environment. Pay attention to our rights and our sexual and reproductive health and rights. But more than anything, protect our ability to learn, so that we will be self-employed and we will make our contribution to planet Earth.
All right, I will come back to you, Natalia, with regards to the numbers and how that is affecting the economy of the continent. But let me come very quickly to Her Excellency, the First Lady of Sierra Leone. You've done one thing that everyone here will testify to, that it's amazing, it's fantastic, it's one of the most challenging things to do in Africa. To be able to ban child marriage, it's something that is commendable, and I think you deserve a round of applause for that. Now, having said that, the first step for me is what you've done. The second step will now be, how do you domesticate this and make it work? How are you going to make it work in Sierra Leone?
You know, when I'm listening to my colleagues here on the panel, in my head, I'm saying to myself, we talk about mass destructions. When they talk about mass destructions, everybody talk about weapons, everybody talk about bombs, everybody talk about all of this. Africa, our worst mass destruction that we have are the penises of men. That is our worst mass destruction, because they use that to destroy our girls. They use that to prevent our girls from being educated. They use that to relegate our girls to poverty. They use that to really demean our girls and make them look so small, so they don't have a future, or they don't believe in themselves to even think about their own future. Now, if every African woman, every African mother starts to see that as a problem, we will be able to protect our children. Now, for Sierra Leone, I can tell you for a fact, when I started the campaign Hands Off Our Girls, I started with rape. At that time, when we talk about rape in Sierra Leone, you can rape a child, and the maximum penalty you will have is 4 months. And that 4 months is because maybe you are nobody. If you are somebody, they will just do like, okay, don't do it again, or make sure next time you are not caught. But when I came as the First Lady, and knowing full well my husband's vision to stop all of this nonsense in the country, I was not shy to go out there and tell the people, look, if you do this, this is what is going to happen. And everything that we have promised them, we have done. The law was changed from 4 months to 15 years minimum. And if you kill somebody during that process, you are going to jail for life. And then we started to implement it immediately, because some people tried to try us. And we started to implement it. We changed policies, we changed laws, and we changed policies that another government will not change when they come back. You know, we changed all of that. And then the mindset, when people realize that whatever these people are saying, they are going to do it, they are not going to, I mean, I don't know about the Western world, but I know Africans, they are scared when you say something and you do it. They know that the next time, whatever you say, you're going to do it. And I can assure you, the banning of early marriage in Sierra Leone, I believe Sierra Leoneans are taking it seriously, because they know I don't say anything foolish.
Okay, thank you very much. We have just about 60 seconds to wrap up very quickly then. So let me ask Dr. Olayemi Dawodu, in terms of replicating the template of Sierra Leone in other parts of the continent, do you think we can use everything you have said in terms of the implication, the impact it has, early marriages, child marriage, the impact it has on the health of the family, on the health of the economy, and all the other things? Do you think it's possible?
Absolutely. I think we also need to let that be at the forefront, because like I was talking about the bad indices for maternal and infant mortality, and if you rope it under that, because we know the correlation it has with child marriages, and you take it from that aspect, taking away from what my panelists have spoken about, you know, people hiding behind religion and customary laws to be able to perpetrate that, I think it kind of overrides all that in terms of ensuring that we're protecting our women and reducing the indices of maternal mortality. So we can come from a health care aspect to have a policy that is countrywide, because I mentioned we have it in Nigeria, but in the north, because you have, marriages and customary laws under the states, some states, 11 states, have not implemented our Child Rights Act. So I think using healthcare with the evidence that we have is a way that we can use to limit this.
Thank you, Nyaradzayi. In one sentence, can you tell us what can we do to women, especially on the continent of Africa, that will get them to follow the template of Sierra Leone and be in the forefront of the fight?
4 actions: legislate to prohibit child marriage and legislate for gender equality. Secondly, shift social norms so that culture or religion is not used to abuse the rights of women and girls. Fourthly, provide services: education, healthcare, comprehensive sexuality education. Fourthly, impunity. We should just have justice. Those who abuse girls should just face the law. It's a crime.
It's a crime, okay. Final word from you, Natalia.
Thank you so much, First Lady and fellow panelists. I just wish to affirm that the young people of Africa are setting the pace. And by investing in an African girl and assuring that she knows her rights, that she possesses bodily autonomy, this is what is going to contribute to peace on the continent. Peace in her home, certainly, because we need to end sexual and gender-based violence, but also peace in the broader world. Invest in an African girl and fulfill her potential. That's my last word.
Thank you so much, ladies. It's been a very fantastic conversation. I had a chat with the First Lady of Sierra Leone earlier. I work with News Central Television based in Nigeria, and there is a commitment on our part to make sure that we go and spend some time to study and promote the template of Sierra Leone. Please, another round of applause, both for the panel and especially for the First Lady. My name is Kayode Akintemi. Thank you so much. It's great to have been here.